I am here with Jacob Williams, the comedian that I find very funny and been enjoying working with. I've done some interviews with chief revenue officers and CEOs about corporate culture and employee engagement. One theme that keeps coming up is humor. And Jacob, I do have to share, is the first comedian that Yaymaker did as within a virtual event. So he agreed to try our platform. He's done it for the public and he's done it for companies, whether it's he does improv, he does workshops, he does stand-up comedy or roast. But Jacob, why don't you just start off, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're working on, your history. I first saw you on America's Got Talent, by the way.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks for watching on there. And it's been awesome to reconnect since meeting you in the past and now be working with you a lot lately. As you said, I have been doing a lot of stand-up comedy shows through Yaymaker, occasionally improv workshops. I do sometimes roast people as well. Some people might have seen me do that on shows like Wild 'N Out on MTV and things like that. But it's definitely been an interesting year for comedy, doing all these online shows. I've done shows before, like not with Yaymaker, but shows in the past online where like everyone's muted and I'm just saying jokes with no response afterwards. It's kind of like the first 2 years I did comedy, basically. I think the worst show I ever did online at the end of my set, I was like, this was kind of weird because you guys were muted. And this guy's like, actually, we weren't muted.
Oh, yeah.
And at one point I did a show actually for like a younger audience and someone accidentally unmuted and his friend's like, what are you watching? He's like, oh, it's the corny white guy from Wild 'N Out. And I had to be like, hey, the corny white guy from Wild 'N Out can hear you right now. So it was like I was basically hearing a YouTube comment live. But overall, it's been a really fun experience doing virtual shows, and especially the ones with the Yaymaker are a lot of fun. It really does feel like a live show. Sometimes it's better than a lot of live shows I've done, honestly, and where the audiences tend to be very engaged and it is in real time. And so you have that interaction, which I love doing. So yeah, I appreciate all the opportunities to perform in front of all these different kinds of groups with Yaymaker.
Well, great. Yeah, we love working with you. I was curious your own thoughts on humor in the workplace. I mean, why do you think it's important?
Well, it's important for me because I'm a comedian, so my workplace is a comedy club and my job is literally to be funny. But I think whatever your job is, it's important to have humor just to be able to relate to people and kind of, be in the moment, communicate and everything. So I definitely have found that, doing corporate shows online or elsewhere, it's like, I think useful to kind of figure out like what the common threads are among like the people that work there and what they can laugh about and that kind of thing. And also like writing material for that topic can be like fascinating to me in terms of like if there's any kind of inside jokes I can reference or that kind of thing. But yeah, I think whatever your job is, I mean, I've heard of gallows humor with people with very intense jobs as well. I think it just helps ease the tension and get you through the day and help you bond with the people you work with.
Makes sense. I noticed your humor is a lot of self-deprecating humor. But although on Nick Cannon's Wild 'N Out, you've got a lot of edge. You've got some swag and on that. So what do you consider your comedic style?
That's a good point because as you mentioned, I am very self-deprecating a lot of the times. I think that's kind of my natural instinct. As I mentioned actually on my comedy special, Unemotional Roller Coaster, it's my album and special, I actually mentioned how like someone one time said like they think I make fun of myself too much, and I'm like, I'm sorry if I offended me, like I don't know what to do about that. And I did a Q&A once and someone's question was just, are you okay? So I guess sometimes people are worried like I'm making fun of myself too much, but I feel like I'm in a weird place as a comedian because like there's so many styles of comedy and I think a lot of people just kind of gravitate really strongly towards one or the other. And for me, it's like I just love all kinds of comedy. So like I love the challenge of doing like an hour of stand-up comedy that's like super clean. I put out a clean version of my comedy album that's on like Laugh USA, which is very strict in their cleanliness standards. And I like that challenge of like how funny can you be without like using like a super raunchy topic or using certain like swear words and stuff. And so I actually really enjoy that. I've done a lot of shows for like churches or shows with my grandparents there where I'm doing an hour of comedy, and shows with all kinds of groups that have like really specific criteria. And I actually really enjoy doing that kind of clean comedy. But like you said, at the same time, I love doing like some of these like roast battle. I did roast battle on Comedy Central and Wild Now, where you're sometimes like going back and forth with people, and the whole point is to like really just be as mean as possible, but you still want it to be like clever and you don't want to actually hurt anyone's feelings. So it's like kind of this weird balance. And so I do like all kinds of jokes. And so it kind of just depends on the situation, but I love just like kind of like figuring out the puzzle of each kind of scenario or audience, whether it's like an improvised rap battle on MTV or just like a church friendly show for nuns where you're like, okay, I can't talk about this, this, and this, but I like that it, you know, puts a lot of pressure on like, how can I make a funny joke about, you know, getting a wrong piece of mail at the post office or whatever I talk about. And so, yeah, so for me, it's like, it's been an even greater challenge this year, just figuring out like, how do I be funny online, which is like introduce all kinds of stuff I wouldn't normally do. I bring in like props from my apartment that are sometimes connected to jokes, newer jokes I have and things like that. And it's opened up all kinds of new stories about shows I've done in like parks and rooftops and all these like weird places we're performing to be safe during the pandemic, outdoors and everything. So it's been certainly a very fascinating time to be a comedian, just in terms of like figuring out how to do it while still being safe, and then generating new material and just learning how to work with it, all kinds of different audiences and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're finding the same thing. You have to be really adaptable. We're asking people before events, do you want a G-rated, PG, PG-13, or edgier, things like that. So it's impressive that if you can be flexible depending on the audience. So right now, am I right? You do improv workshops, and typically, like, what size groups or things do you work with those on?
Yeah, so that can be like a whole range of things. I remember doing a show at one point that was just me doing comedy for like a family, like one family in Seattle who bought this like exclusive package. And so like living room, and they're like all different ages, from like the older parents to like teenagers and older kids. And so it was just like kind of interesting figuring out what jokes work best for that. But at the same time, I have been doing improv a long time. I've done a lot of seasons of Wild Now, which is an improv based show. And then before that was, you know, doing improv for years in addition to stand up in Chicago, where I'd like take a ton of classes and do shows around it, like Second City, Improv Olympic, Comedy Sports, and all kinds of different places with different styles. So I love doing improv. I've taken all the classes of sketch and improv at UCB in New York and other places, and it's like always fascinating to me, like what you can do with that. I definitely highly recommend an improv class to anyone, whatever their job is. I think that helps you just be in the moment and collaborate and just be able to go with the flow in any situation that comes up. So I have done, you know, some improv workshops, which I think are a great way to just kind of, you know, get people in touch with like being in the moment and that kind of thing, whether it's doing longer like scenes or whatever, or just doing some of the short form kind of games, which I think can be a lot of fun as well. So yeah.
And if what's an improv exercise? Can we just try a 30-second improv exercise?
Yes, of course. So just a few examples that come to mind are like, yeah, there's like kind of joke formula kind of things about like 180 such and such walk into a bar, or I like my, yeah. And
what walk into a bar and
so for that one, it's like you would kind of just get a suggestion from the audience of like any kind of maybe a household object or something, and then make it, just try to come up with something about that.
I say 180 light bulbs walk into a bar.
Okay, so like for instance, and this is not pre-planned, just so people know watching this. I didn't know he was going to say light bulb, but like if so, I don't know what I would say, but if I had to guess, I'd be like, okay, 188 light bulbs walk into a bar, and the bartender's like, we can't serve you because we don't think you're very bright, or something like that. So it's kind of like a chance to kind of just free associate and see where your mind goes. There's other games like ABC scene, where you have to like do a scene, but each next line is like a letter of the alphabet, and it's kind of like funny to see how much that gets people invested in the story, while also being like, oh, are they like having trouble thinking of the next letter, and that keeps the audience engaged. So things like that I think are just super fun, just to like really, whatever, you know, like I said, whatever your role is in your job or in life, it's like just helpful to like have those mental and social exercises to be in the moment.
Well, all right. Well, I wanted to keep this just to 10 minutes, but I wanted people to get to know you, see your style, sense of humor. But you do roasts, you do improv workshops, and you do stand-up. So anyway, I look forward to continue working with you. Excited as you get back more in venue and virtual. And yeah, and just wishing you the best.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Always great working with you and talking to you. Thanks, Matt.